Hello, everybody. I am Melissa Forziat. I am a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. Now, when I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which for me is another way of saying Carpe Diem. It's all about going after the things that you want in life, seizing the opportunities. And something I wanted to seize this year was to rewatch the show Halt and Catch Fire, but this time talk about it with people, all of you. So the great thing is we've up leveled that. Now I'm getting a chance to talk with people who worked on the show about the show. And before I introduce today's guest, who I'm sure you're all very excited to hear from, one quick housekeeping item. If you are brand new to the show and you want to keep it spoiler free up until the episode you're on, just watch the episode recaps. Those are safe for you, but these interviews could be spoiler filled. We could mention anything that happens from any season of the show. So just know that up front. But stick around. This is going to be a fun one. So I am very happy to welcome my guest for today, who is Joshua Hoover, who played Bodie in seasons 2 and 3. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people who are very glad to see you on screen here. I have so many questions for you. It's ridiculous, but let's just start with a question that I ask a lot of people, which is, what was the process for you in getting onto this show to begin with?
The show was the craziest story, and don't know if I've ever told it in a public forum. First of all, thank you for doing this. I love this show so much, so thank you for getting our family back together and seeing all the weird, perfectly fitting parts. But yeah, this show was insane. It was one of my first I think it was my second or third TV show. I'd have to look back at my IMDb and see what it was, but I had started playing the Atlanta local hire game, and as you know, most of the coders, if you've talked to Gabe or any of the other guys, they all played local hires. So this was kind of when that was booming. I was in class here in Los Angeles at the time, with Leslie Kahn, and I met this guy, Josh Brady Smith, and he was in class with me. He was from North Carolina. My family's in North Carolina. He was like, "You should get an agent." And I was like, "Yeah, I should get an agent." Next thing you know, I get hooked up with his agent. His agent submits me on this movie, The Nice Guys, that I did with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. Had a tiny little bit in that. And then that turned into this Atlanta work where I just fly myself out, put myself up, or stay with my uncle, who was the best, and work in Atlanta like I'm a local hire, like that's my local, scene. So I've been in Los Angeles now for 17 years. I started playing this game. This one was nuts though, because they wanted me to fly out for a callback. And I thought that was just too crazy. And I told my girlfriend at the time, and I told my best friend Michael at the time, and his wife was there, and we were all sitting around my little downtown studio. And I was like, "Guys, I just got a call back." And they're like, "Yeah, but they want to see you for 2 parts." And I was like, "Yeah." I went out for Bodie, and I went out for Corey's part. What did Corey play? Frosty. I was up for Frosty and Bodie. So it was either one. I could have, been like the stoner or the party guy. So I went in and decided to fly back for the callback. Like that was on my own dime. It was a risk. I had no idea what I was doing, like flying to Atlanta for this job, but I did. And I get into that room, and it's Melissa and Kimberly and Lisa Mae Fan Cannon. I think we did like a couple of auditions, and I've auditioned for so many things of theirs, so I forget which one it was. But we're sitting in this room, and they pair like 5 of us up together, and I think Gabe said it too. It was me, Gabe, Nick, John Cho, and a couple other guys that they were like fandangling to see who like the best fit for the coders was, and it was so weird to I've done theater a lot growing up, so like getting called in and then waiting in the waiting room, getting called back, and you're paired with somebody else, and you're like, is that good? Is that bad? I don't know if I got it. And then the last time I went in was like kind of when they were saying improv, go for it, do whatever you want. And we're just screwing around, passing each other papers and saying, hey, don't hit me there, like that whole chaotic energy. And they're like, Cameron needs this. And I was like, yeah, when is he going to do that? And they said, and they just turned on me and they said, Cameron's a chick, Cameron's a girl. And I was like, yeah, I know. Sorry, I'm stoned or whatever I said, right? And it was just my naivety of the show. Like I had never heard of this show and I was flying to, Atlanta like a dum-dum, just hoping for the best. And 16 episodes later is one of the best experiences of my life. And some of the best humans. I absolutely loved working on this show so much. So
Oh, what a great story. So, okay, so when you were going up for both Bodie and Frosty,
mhm.
who we now know by the end of the show, those two roles are very different from each other. But on paper, at the time you were auditioning, did it look like about the same amount of work? Was it all
Oh
sort
yeah.
of interchangeable?
Yeah, the coders were all like, it was funny to watch some of your interviews and relive that energy because each week we were just like, God, I hope I have lines. God, I hope I'm in this episode. None of us were on guarantees. None of us had like any kind of deal. It was just week to week. And I became really good friends with people because, I'm a little social butterfly and I just want to be everybody's best friend. So I'm talking to the makeup and I'm talking to the ADs, and not to get any of those people in trouble, but it's been almost 10 years. They would send me the scripts and let me know if I was going to be in them. And then like that's when I would be like, all right, I can stay in Atlanta a little bit longer. Or I should fly back to LA. It was crazy. It was crazy to jump through the hoops of like trying to get a job and be an actor in Los Angeles, but it happened biggest in Atlanta for me, and then now it's turned into a sustainable career, hopefully. So
I mean, in hindsight, it ended up paying off because there's quite a body of work for you on this show.
yeah,
But it's sad that you couldn't know that before. Like there's the stress of it that you had to live through. But now looking back, you're in a lot of scenes and you've got a lot of really important moments in this
yeah.
show.
In my 30s, I don't know if I would have done it. Like I was 28, I think, or 26, 27 when I got that job. So like I'm 37 now, so it's like I don't know if I would have flown myself to Atlanta and been as go-getter and excited about it, but I'm so happy that that show turned out the way it did and our experience was what it was. Like we had something special for sure.
Yeah. So, okay, you said you hadn't seen the show before the audition process, which is fair. I mean, there had been one season, and frankly, I don't know how much of it had aired by the time you were auditioning. So, um, when you booked the role, did you go back and watch how much of the show had you seen when you started working?
No, when I booked it, I'm pretty sure I went back and watched the whole first season. A couple of the guys and I like got really close and would just watch stuff together all the time. Like I don't know if anybody got into it, but we kind of started a little video club down in Justin Randall Brooks' basement, and we would watch like 1980s movies and 1990s movies together. Just feel like we were that little group. So, but we got together and watched some of the first season. I remember that, and I remember thinking like, "What is this show?" Because I think even then they didn't even know like where they were headed with it as much. I know AMC was like, "We want the next Mad Men. We want the next Mad Men," and I was like, "This is the Breaking Bad producers. What?" Like I was so stoked that we were getting to work with some of the best writers and directors and producers and creators. The Chris's are amazing. Um, but yeah, I had no idea what I was getting into show wise. I just knew that I was going to play a computer coder and be kind of a party animal. And I mean, I wanted my Animal House moment, and I think I have several of those clips now. you know?
That you do. I mean, what could you do to prep for the role?
I mean, I was already kind of a computer nerd. I worked for Apple growing up, like at the Grove here in LA. That was one of my first jobs, was working as a Mac specialist at the Grove. So like computers always made sense to me, and like Even now, I'm such a techie little. I love spending time on the computer. If I could do this as much as I do social life, then it'd be fun. But yeah, I've always been a computer guy and loved like looking back at what they went through. Um, like the Steve Jobs. I had also done background work on the Ashton Kutcher Steve Jobs movies, so I feel like I knew what this was a little bit, you know. But I didn't really do a ton of research besides like looking at what programming was because I'm still not a programmer in any regard. I'm more of a video editor personally, but background stuff for the role, I mean, it was really just creating that cohesive family bond that we had as best friends. Like six of us, I think like 6 to 8 of us were hanging out like all the time. You know what I mean? Like there would not be a day during the week that we didn't see each other, and it was just kind of like camp, but like we have a budget and we can spend money and go to dinner, and like it was the best. It was super fun.
Oh, I'm loving every second of this. So if we talk a little bit more about Bodie himself, so okay, one of Bodie's hallmarks is the amount of dirty jokes. He's a walking HR violation, really. Right from the beginning, the very first episode that you're in, we get a long oneer to start off season 2, and Wonder Boy says, "Jess is hard," and Bodie takes the opportunity to say, "I'm hard," and he never passes these moments up. He gets eye rolls from the team every time. But he also seems like a guy who has real genuine connections with everybody on the team. So now if we think about like the whole run of your character, how would you describe Bodie?
Um I feel like that almost comes down to me a little bit because I feel like they just took us and made us the group, you know what I mean? And for me, it's all about love, you know what I mean? Like I just want to love what I do, love who I'm around, and love life. It's way too short to not enjoy it. And like, I think that's kind of uh who Bodie was. I think Bodie was also more of a slacker than I am in real life, like I play a lot of slackers on television, but Bodie was like one that did it supremely well, I think, and he had everybody in that office not under his grip, but definitely like favorable. If I needed a favor, somebody would do me a favor. I feel like, that character growth for me was to like what I really want to like explain it as. I went to a Christian college and didn't have the college experience that I wanted to have. Halt and Catch Fire was that college experience. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I felt like for Bodie. I felt like that character was very much like, I'm gonna grow up. I'm gonna turn into a man a little bit. And by season 3, you see him like, at the new spot, and then whatever you hear about in season 4, what happens with Bodie, like, I think that mutiny turns him into a man, and like I think that he goes on to like take care of a family and you know the whole bit.
Oh, Mutiny turns him into a man.
I
We're
think
getting
they
the best
do.
stuff here.
Don't you think? Like
I
a little
do. I do. I
people's
have,
like yeah, I
yeah,
think
I have some questions coming up later about like the responsibility that Bodie seems to be taking on, and I do have some questions about that because I'm trying to figure out where he really is placed in the team. But first, let's go back a little bit earlier than that. So
yeah.
uh, there are a couple of really pivotal moments in season 2 where Bodie makes business decisions for himself. And the first one happens in 204, Play with Friends. Mutiny is at a really low point. Sonaris almost just wiped out the whole business. And Cam and Donna have a very honest team meeting. And they say, well, I think we all know the situation. We can't afford to pay anybody, but we do need to get out of this situation. So if anybody wants to stick around and help us through this, we'll pay you in shares. That's a challenging financial proposition for a whole team to bear. So they said everybody needs to make their own decision. Bodie decides to stay. I'm curious for you when you think about Bodie, or when you were thinking about him at that point. Had you made decisions like what do you think his life was like outside the office? What had made him want to stay at that time when he couldn't be paid, and maybe never those shares might not ever become money, for him.
Yeah.
So what made him want to stay at that time, and how was he able to support that?
I think it's just that family and team mentality of what we're talking about before, where it's just like that's all he knows. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, yeah, you can kick him out and tell him to go find a new job, but maybe Blockbuster, or maybe he turns into a Clerks, Kevin. I don't know. I think that there's like a level of what else would he do? I think most of the coders in that world spent their lives at that house. Like if we're jumping this back to what real life was, those guys didn't leave the garage. You know what I mean? Wozniak didn't leave the garage. Steve was always working. Like you look at those kind of characters who turn these global monumental internet companies or whatever they are now, computer companies, like all those people worked really hard and then it kind of hit. And I think that's kind of the unfortunate thing about Halt is like a lot of us worked really hard and it never I mean, I think it has like a hit now, like I think like even when I talk to people who are like, "Oh, you're an actor? Cool. Yeah, what do you do?" "Oh, I was on a show called Halt and Catch." I love that show. And that is the one that means the most to me. And I know that that's shitty to say to like all my other work, but like when you do something for 2 years and you fall in love with these humans and you just care about your job and you care about what you're making and you're on pins and needles of like, please come back. And it's like abusive relationship a little bit where you're like, I want this in my life so bad. Yeah, I think like we worked really hard and we were gonna hit. And I think you can take it however you want to go for the end of the show, but I think some of us are probably doing well in that multiverse of Mutiny, whatever it is now, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, even from your answer, it's like art was imitating life and life was imitating art, or who knows which one.
Yeah.
In that same episode, obviously, an iconic moment that I'm sure has followed you everywhere you go is the mutiny photo. And we get the whole scene is really fun. You're not in most of the scene of Tom trying to wrangle the whole group, but you literally slide in for the very end of it. And it's what everybody remembers about this scene, I'm sure. So, talk to me about this scene, and how many times did you have to slide in for this? How did they sort of break up the shooting of that, if they were doing like the beginning part and then the back half of it once you were in there? Walk me through this one.
So this was again something that was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be half naked on camera. This is the first time that I've ever done anything like this. I'm a minister's son. My parents are going to be like, oh my God. But yeah, they're like, we want you to slide in your underwear like you're photobombing. And I was like, okay. Uh, so we're going to slick the floor? And they're like, oh, you should be able to slide. And I was like, okay. And I was like, yeah, we'll grease it down and we'll double pad your socks just in case or whatever. Um, a lot of that show and a lot of the mutiny stuff like was controlled chaos. Like we have 20 some people on set, which is high for most shows. Um so Tom's literally trying to wrangle, and if I'm honest, I don't even remember them calling action on that. And if I'm honest, I don't remember them calling cut. Like I remember doing it once or twice, and I think it was our guy Josh who was working with props. And the first time I did it, I ran and I felt a little bit of like a splinter or something like that, possibly poking through the socks. So I was like, this isn't gonna work, like I don't want to like fall and make a mess of myself. And they're like, here, let's. They added some more slick and gave me another pair of socks, and then it was just boom. And like when they got it, our photographer, our on-set stills got it, and that was the shot that they used on Cameron's desk. And then they filmed, like they obviously filmed the entire scene, and I didn't know, like I thought we were just going till the shot. Like in my mind, I read the script as it was just like boom, and then we're to the next scene. So I was like, did we get it? Did you like that? Was genuinely me saying to Carrie Bechet, like, did it work? Like, and like, we didn't have that close of a relationship as like Mutiny, like she's my superior, whatever. But Carrie Bechet, I love more than anything. So I'm pretty sure I just hug her in my underwear, which am I doing as Bodie? But one other quick side story to this. Can I give you a prop too, just so I like, is it gonna ruin if I go run off screen real quick?
No, I'll cut that part out. We'll come right back.
All right. So a little side story about the shooting of that scene. I was again nervous about my underwear and what would be showing, and if too much would be showing, and if not enough would be showing, whatever. So I talked to the costume designer and I was like, so are we just literally wearing a pair of briefs? And she goes, well, honey, I worked on Boogie Nights and I made Mark Wahlberg's package, so we can do whatever you want to do. And I was like, what? And Kimberly, she was the costume designer on Boogie Nights and also Halt and Catch Fire. She makes me these special lined underwear so nothing gets out or through or anything like that. And at the end of that, she gave them to me. Is it gonna blur?
How do we? It's blurring. Oh my god, that's so appropriate.
Here.
Let's see. Nope, it's too. Yes. Oh my god.
So there's me, there's the whole photo, and then this is the underwear. And as you can see, she lined it, and now I have these framed in my hallway. So if you ever come over, this is hanging up in my hallway. And it's super.
I just I was just saying I never want this conversation to end, and I really don't.
One more since we're right here. This is the actual photo from set. I stole
Oh
it
wow.
Aaron's desk, and now it's in my dresser nightstand. So
What an amazing prop to steal.
yeah, I hope you don't hear about that.
That's like the perfect thing to take. Oh my goodness. I mean, I don't even know what to do with myself. Well, okay. So you there are a couple of really unique game sequences that we're going to get with the Mutiny team across this season and the next season. There are a lot of times we're going to see the Mutiny team playing some sort of game, even if it's a word game. But I'm thinking specifically of the fact that we get a Nerf dart battle in season 2, and we're going to get a laser tag battle in season 3. So first of all, just generally, what do you think those scenes added to the show?
Some of my favorite work days ever. The Nerf stuff was amazing. The laser scenes were like so much fun. I think it adds that chaotic energy that we're talking about. Like Cameron and Donna are trying to wrangle these coders and make something special. They know we're capable of doing it. They know that this is the space to do it, and they're gonna, guide us to do it. But they also realize that we're 20 somethings that are horny, active little weirdos, like we have so much energy in that house. And like for it to be the 80s, 90s and be so male dominated, like when the Chris's came in season 2 and said like, oh, we're gonna give the show to the girls, like they meant it. Like it was the best move that I think that they did for the show. Like nothing against Lee Pace. Lee Pace is the best actor that I've ever acted with. Like Lee Pace is hands down, like she gives me like, whoa, dude, when we're in scenes together. You know what I mean? Like hands down connected to material, like nothing I've ever seen. But the girls, like, I just thought it was genius to flip the show to them and show them be these like, you know, badass women. Like they're so Donna and Cameron, have their flaws and have their issues, but like I'm glad, especially on a day like today and the last couple days we've had this women empowerment, and hopefully we have like women take control a little bit, you know.
Yeah. Oh my
I
gosh.
love that for the show.
So when we think about those scenes from a technical standpoint, or from actually being on set to make those happen, I
Yeah.
mean, there's probably nothing quite like trying to do those scenes. And I'm especially interested in the laser tag scene because it's dark. I mean, you've got the painted faces, like just it's a very those are very different scenes. So what did it entail on set to get that footage?
I wish I had like more specific technical answers. In my mind, it just plays out as fun.
Mhm.
And I think that's really what it was. I think like they shot like that a lot too. You know what I mean? Like Glenn was amazing, Steven. Like we had so many great camera ops and so many great like we had the best of the best writers, everything. So like just shooting off the cuff and like I remember reading the scripts and being like, "Oh, that'd be so cool." But I think like a lot of the stuff, like when Cameron and I end up in the closet together and I shoot her or whatever, like it I don't know. And then the whole Tom Rendon, like I was like in the middle of their little love triangle, I felt like too a little bit, because that's how I felt in real life. Like I was like, I wanted to be best friends with Mark and Mackenzie, you know, Mark and Mackenzie are amazing. And yeah, like those little moments where we jump into a closet, or I mean, the technical stuff of that I remember being a lot because you know we have to shoot inside of a closet, so it's like three separate stages. But yeah, a lot of the Nerf stuff. I mean, we just would shoot and hope for the best. I think you know, literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, to shoot inside a closet. How were they shooting that? Did they like have holes in the wall or something, or how did they?
Well, we'd open a door inside the actual like mutiny house that was on stage, and then we'd cut and shoot inside of like a standalone closet that they made where both sides were open so they could remove the
Okay,
wall on each side. I think that's
okay.
I remember it. It wasn't like the actual room, but I remember going to a different, and then I found Cameron and Mark or Tom. Yeah.
Whoever they are, it all blends
You know,
together.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, okay. I'm curious. I've been wondering about this. So in 205, which is Extract and Defend, we're going to see Buzz start to assume more managerial duties for Mutiny. He gets a little overzealous with that. At a certain point, he sort of corners Bodie in the kitchen and starts complaining about the coffee station, wanting a coffee station because the kitchen layout makes no sense. And Bodie's just like, I don't even know what's happening right now. But it made me think about, because that's, some episodes after Buzz arrives on the scene at Mutiny. And I always wondered what the reception to Baz was in the Mutiny House, because some people had worked with him at Cardiff Electric or sort of had worked under him. He was quite distantly at the top at Cardiff Electric. Some people had not had that experience. He's been to prison, like it seems like there was a really mixed reception for him in the house when he got there. But for what you remember for Bodie, what would Bodie's reaction to Boz have been?
Probably rebellious, I'd say. I don't know if I played that because I love Toby Huss so much. But yeah, I think like when he came in and was kind of like father figure to Cameron and just kind of like this old Texas whatever, and I don't know, he was just kind of a grunt, and like I think that we brought life to him too, and we made like I don't know. I like Toby's another one, unmatched actor wise. He's one of the greatest actors that's working right now, and his commentary and his like approach to Boz was hilarious. I mean, he'd have us laughing nonstop in between takes. I've heard everybody tell you about this already because it's so true. Gabe telling you about tucking the shirt in while we're trying to have serious scenes with Joe and showing off his midriff to us. It was just like, geez. But like the character that my initial instinct is to go like, oil tycoon, Texas rich kind of guy, like whatever he is, Cardiff Electric, prison, all of his backstory. Like, I just feel like he was kind of anti what we were doing. Like, he had no place in a coder world, but he did have a place in like a managerial kind of spot. So to throw him in with the wolves of Mutiny, uh, yeah,
Yeah, what an interesting
probably should have
approach.
played that better. In my mind, I'm just like, this guy's great. I'm just sitting
No,
there.
I mean, I think it's really complex, which is why it's something I've been digging into with different people that I've interviewed, because I think it seems like he's received differently by different people, which when you're rewatching it and you're deep diving, it's like, I wonder if that tells me anything about the connections between the people on the team, because who's talking to who and what are they saying? And probably, if one person respects Foz, that might like sort of infiltrate the feelings of some of the people. And if somebody else doesn't, maybe that has an influence on other people. And so it's
Yeah.
been fun to sort of see
Well, just from
it.
that perspective, I'd say that, Arky, Carl, Wonder Boy, like those guys probably had a little bit more respect for Boz, I'd say. I think Bodie and Lev and come on, help me with some other coder names.
I mean, Yo-Yo seems to embrace him. Lev
Yo-Yo
seems to be
Yo-Yo
kind of
is definitely
against.
yeah, Yo-Yo is definitely with him, I think, up top.
Mm-hmm.
But like up top, I think like any change, I think is probably something Bodie would probably be like a little like, meh, what
Mm-hmm.
are you doing here? You're not here, like
Yeah.
what? Who gave you the key, bro? I think that's probably his more approach to it. But yeah, I think that there definitely is like a family growth with him through season two, season three. Like when he when everything goes down with him and he finds his love interest and Annabeth Kish and like there's so many great parts. Like that's the beauty of this show, the character development and growth of like so many of those characters. I don't know. I love it.
So, in as we stay in season two here, sort of middle of season two, I'm so glad that you mentioned that you were having real movie nights with some of the
Yeah.
actors, because obviously we get another great moment with you. Well, with the whole Mutiny team, they had a movie night watching The Terminator, but Bodie
I'd never
really
seen
loves.
I had never seen it.
Oh my gosh, because
So
you
they
had
were like,
to.
"You haven't seen Terminator?" I was like, the minister's son. I wasn't allowed to watch anything over PG. So that's what it was. Like anytime we talked about a movie, we were like, "Have you seen it, Hoover?" No. Okay, time to watch. Like it was very much that.
That
And
is so funny because Bodie loves the movie so much he has to mouth all the words.
uh,
Okay.
I had to literally watch it back right as we were shooting. I was like, I don't want to mess this up. Come on. All right. All right. All
Yeah,
right.
because it's not just learning the lines, you have to get the timing
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
So, it made me think like when you look at especially the season two Mutiny house, which just set decoration, there was something in every nook and cranny of that
Yeah.
house. Plus, you've got moments in that are scripted, like that movie where they're referencing pop culture from the 80s. So, for you, what are some of your favorite cultural references that made their way onto the show, either scripted or just like somewhere in the room that maybe we saw?
Well, I don't know if anyone talked to you about this or not. Did anybody talk to you about Annabelle?
We have not gotten a full description. We need to know about Annabelle. Yeah.
Okay. So Annabelle was this white mannequin in the corner of, I think, where my desk was, in the Mutiny House. And every time we're about to shoot, they say Annabelle. So I think it was Carrie, or no, it might have been August Emerson. I think he named the mannequin Annabelle. So that became like just a recurring thing, and how they dress the mannequin with like an army hat or camo jacket or whatever. Like that was something that I always remember now. I was just on another show this last month and they were saying Annabelle, and I was like, so we had a mannequin on this show. And they're like, yeah, we don't care. You know what I mean? Like, it's just those little bits where it's just Halt has so many of those things that pop up in my everyday life that I'm like, ah, I miss those days. Um, I'm trying to think like what other. I mean, the house in general, I would love to live in a craftsman, like that. That's such a beautiful house. And then the real house that we shot at was also gorgeous, but the fake studio house that they made inside, I loved. The posters were sick. I remember some of those posters disappeared, and I know where one of them is right now. Not in my apartment. I did not take it. Uh, but I'm trying to think. The costume design, the like Kimberly was just amazing and brought us in and like just made each of our characters feel like us, like she gave me acid wash jeans, I think, for an episode, and gave me a cat shirt that had like tie-dye stuff everywhere with just a cat in the middle. And like, it was just it was genius. Like whatever would stick, whatever was best, everybody be like, yeah. You know what I mean? And if something was too much or something was, I don't know, distracting. That's usually what it was. It's like, all
Yeah.
right, Bodie, calm down. It's distracting. Like that's a common note I would get.
Well, and that leads perfectly into my next question, which will eventually roll around to a hat. But 206, 10 Broad 36, it becomes a heist episode partway through. You all want to trick Joe McMillan into thinking that you've made changes to Mutiny that he asked for so that he can give Mutiny a lower hourly rate to use West Group's server. So you're all trying to trick him, and it's this big thing. We see the setup, we see the attempt, we see the failure. What do you remember about shooting this episode, and why were you wearing a fez? I think it's a fez, right?
Oh, I don't even remember.
You're like at a certain point, you're under a table trying to fix something, and you come up wearing a hat.
I do remember the hat. I don't remember what that episode entailed, though. I think Larissa Kondrecki did that one, and she's one of my favorite directors that I worked with for sure. But I can't remember.
So to place it for you, so Joe, it wasn't really a bait and switch, but it looks that way to Cam and Donna, where Gordon had negotiated, unbeknownst to Cam or Donna, with Joe, that West Group was going to, Joe wants to get West Group to start having a server room that they could start basically renting out the server to other companies. And Joe says, Gordon says, I'll only help you with this if Mutiny gets a good rate with you. So Joe sets that up and he starts Mutiny at a very low rate. But at the point in this episode where Donna says, can we get this official? Can we contract this? Like, I want this in writing that we're getting this rate. And things come to a head and a negotiation happens with Joe where his boss now comes into play and says, no, I want you to raise the hourly amount. Joe comes back and he says, okay, I have to negotiate now on behalf of the company. He's trying to flex for his boss. And he's saying, you can have the rate that you want if you meet the following benchmarks. And there are some pretty big ones, like you need to be able to run Mutiny off of computers that aren't Commodores. There were some really big structural things, and the team decides instead of making these changes, they're going to stick it to Joe. They're going to pretend they made them, and they're going to make a big show of it and have him come over and show him that they've made the changes, but not really having done it. So they put, it's all smoke and mirrors. And we spend a portion of the episode with them trying to get everything set up. And then we spend a couple scenes with him sitting down and not being fooled. So it's a really interesting episode. Nothing quite feels like it. It feels a little Ocean's 11-y because everybody's like, oh, we could do this, we could do this, we could pull this over here, we could take the fan out. Like, how can we pretend we've done this? So it's a very collaborative thing, but it's also against Joe.
Yeah. I remember that more. I don't feel like I had a ton in that episode, so I can't remember exactly what I did. But when you bring that up, August Emerson Lev comes up to mind with like the fictional, like, let's put on a show for Joe kind of thing. Um, I mean, that is the biggest relationship I think that we had in the house, was our disdain for Joe. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when everything goes down the way it goes down, like I you're messing with my girl, you're messing with my family, you know what I mean? Like Cameron, like, don't mess with her heart, and then don't come in here and mess with our business, you know, like it just felt like so much disdain for that character, and especially when we're trying to dupe him. I remember that. I remember trying to dupe him, but yeah, just
Mm.
immaculate acting from that man. Lee Pace is next level.
I
So
mean, every minute of it, really.
yeah.
So there's another interesting business related choice for Bodie that's sort of the opposite, or maybe it shouldn't even be in the same ballpark as the decision to stay with Mutiny when it was just working for shares. So in 207, working for the clampdown, this is a really big episode for Bodie. Early in the episode, we're going to see that Joe comes to the Mutiny house. He wants to tender an offer to buy Mutiny. And the leadership realizes it's a pretty good offer, but this is Joe. And Cam has certain feelings about Joe. So she is like, absolutely not. She walks into the main room, gets on a table, gives a big speech to everybody in the room, tears up the offer, sprinkles it on the floor, gets everybody to shout Joe out of the house. But later, a couple of the guys say, what was that offer? And they start to piece it together. And Bodie is the most vocal about saying, hey, hold on a second, this was a good offer. And specifically, he's concerned that Cam actually owns 90% of Mutiny. So very few people are willing to speak out at Mutiny, but Bodie does. Talk to me about this episode. Why is Bodie making that choice? What is that about him that's making him do that?
Well, I think that, you know, right back to that love, fair, whatever. When I put my heart into something, or I put my like being into like a company or whatever, I think Bodhi is that same way, where it's just like, hey, I've given you what I said I was going to give you. Why aren't you telling me everything? Or why are you withholding this information? And it comes across as personal. You know, it was very personal, I think, for him in that moment. And for me, that was the biggest scene that I think I had on the show at that point, or in my career. So I think that there was like a moment of going, oh my God. So like that nerves and energy just built into, I remember that day being quite, I flubbed the lines at one point, and I was just like, what am I doing? Why are they, I was so nervous. But I remember like standing up and, when are we gonna tell us details of the deal or whatever it was,
Yeah.
right? Like, you own 90% of Mutiny?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember just like feeling so undercut, you know, and I think that's what I put into that, was just like, we stayed when we were worth nothing, and now that we're worth something, you're going to treat us like we didn't. You're going to treat us like we haven't been doing the exact same thing you've been doing, or we haven't been putting in just as much effort or just as much heart into this place as much as you have, and you're just going to walk off and make all the decisions. And not to bring it back to today, but it's like, yeah, we do all need a say in how our lives go. We do all need a say. If and I'm very much a person like that. If something's on my chest, I'm gonna let you know real quick. But Bodhi was also that way, and kind of the mouth for the group a couple of those times when others didn't feel like they could or would. Um,
And whether he knew it or not, I mean, it's really a voice that Donna probably needs to hear as well.
yeah,
Because she's probably got the same feeling. Like she's been saying, please don't make unilateral decisions. And then here we are. So, he's actually speaking for quite a lot of people.
yeah.
Um, but yeah. One of the most beautiful things that happens with your character is also in this episode, where when we start the episode, there's a little game happening with what were they, wacky wall walkers, or you're throwing them at the posters. There's a few of you. You were gambling on it.
It's in my dresser drawer.
Oh, the number of things you have. So one of the most beautiful things is when you all are gambling, you bet something that isn't of much value to the other guys, and they say, come on, we want your black Spider-Man. And so I guess at the end of that, Bodie didn't win, but didn't give over the black Spider-Man, is my understanding, the action figure. And in that episode, Lev, who was one of the people playing, he gets beaten up really badly. It's sort of like the first experience of catfishing, I guess, is what you would call that, that plays out on screen. And it's a horrific, homophobic, violent act that's committed against him. We see Lev in the hospital, unconscious, and Donna goes in to see Lev. Bodie is just coming out. And as Donna goes in, we see that Bodie has left behind the black Spider-Man figure. And I don't know how much, I mean, that little button on it, I don't know if you probably saw it in the script. But how, I just think about the strength of the bonds that Bodie has. I think about that moment. How do you think he is as a teammate?
Again, heart and soul, baby. I think like every piece of him is in it. You know what I mean? And go to astrology or whatever. I bet he's an Aries just like me. When you're in something, you're in something. And when you're not, you're not. And that's how I felt, or that's how I think Bodhi felt too. I mean, the way that they show his character of like being the one that shows up at the hospital or being the one that steps up for the team, like I loved it. I had no idea that's what I was getting into or how it came off in the show, like looking back on it, it's definitely like it gives me a lot of love for that. Um, but that was also really special too, because August and I were like becoming really close at that moment too. So when he like got beat up on the show and was in the hospital, like he was one of my best friends on the show at the time. And like me and him hanging out at a hospital together with his face busted was one of my favorite memories too. Not to keep doing this.
Every time Joshua walks away, something great is about to happen for all of us. This is just
So
one treat after another.
This is what August gave me after that. I don't
Aww.
see it, but there's me and him in the hospital room, and it was like this is one of my favorite gifts from that show, like yeah, August Emerson 2015. Like
Aww.
so adorable. You know what I mean? And like that you see my smile while he's unconscious. Like that's on my refrigerator, and that's where it's gonna live, like I don't know. I love it.
Gosh, show and tell with Joshua Hoover. This is the best.
We're
Tell
just doing
me
one show.
I mean, tell me about the mutiny party in 208 in Limbo. I can only imagine, because it's, I think that was shot over what, 2 days. So that would have been a lot of time hanging out with those people that you were meant to be clumped up with at the party. What was that like?
I loved that episode. Anytime we got to go on a field trip, it felt like school field trips, you know what I mean? Like when we went to go shoot in an actual house, or we went to go shoot in an actual hospital. I think we used a hospital for that scene. It was always so much fun, and the extras and background characters that we had, like we had a solid recurring group of background actors that were with us as coders, and you really got to see everybody at the party. You know what I mean? Like when we have the party, everybody's there. And those kind of days were my favorite because you got everybody around, you got all the crew, extra hair and makeup, like I said, family. Everybody was so fun. I remember that episode specifically because that was kind of when I got another one of those distracting notes. Um, I there's this girl who worked in costumes, Kate, and she was amazing. And she and I became really good friends. And her husband was also a very nice friend. And there was an episode where she got to play an extra. She got to be one of the party guests. So she was like in an 80s cute, like Bob, and like just looked adorable. And we're like, all right, Bodie's girlfriend. We're gonna make her Bodie's girlfriend. So Kate got to be my
I was going
Bodie's.
to ask about that. That's from 301, right?
Yeah. Oh, was that 301?
I think so.
Oh, that's the
Is
party?
Boz singing in that? Well, it could have been that, but you had your arm around somebody in 301 when
Oh,
Boz is singing at the new Mutiny office, and it's a
no, that's not
question.
her. The outdoor party was the one
Oh,
with Kate. And we even, I think we kissed. I think we kissed. And the director, Daisy, was like, no, it's distracting. Stop, stop, stop. We can't follow that, you know? And like, it was just silly,
so
silly,
Bodie
silly.
has more than one love interest on this show.
Please.
How about that? Because I was
More
like,
than
with
one
the
per episode. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, because with 301, like you had only been in San Francisco for like a couple of months a few months maybe at that point, and he's like got his arm around another girl at the all right, Bodie.
Oh, I'm a friendly guy. It's easy to be flirty on a show and get to know somebody and just be like, oh, let's act like we're a couple in this scene, and then you act like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bodie was finding love in the mutiny party in 208 too. How about that? Oh
Sure he was. I'm sure he was.
my gosh. What do you
Yeah.
remember about the plane, getting on the plane to go to San Francisco at the end of that season?
The thing I remember the most about that episode was shooting in this hangar, like huge building. It's like a chemical plant or something, I think. Like, I don't even know if it was like an actual thing, but they had the plane inside of this huge building, and it was just, the body of the plane, and we're all getting in there. But the thing that remember the most is staying till the end of wrap and just bawling my eyes out. Like, I just cried and hugged Carrie Bechet and hugged Mackenzie and was just like, this has been one of the best experiences of my life. Like, I had no idea a job could be this fun, could be this familial, could be this, life changing. You have theater, if you've done theater, you know what it's like to get close with the cast and do the same thing over and over again. But when you're doing a show and you're on 16-hour days and you're going home and hanging out with them at their place, or going to concerts and shows, and like all of us went to go see Dave Chappelle together back in the day. Like me, Mackenzie, Mark, and Kate all went to go see a show together. Like it was like I just felt so lucky to be a part of something. And obviously we were hoping that it was just going to explode. And I think we got nominated for an Emmy that year, so it was like hopefully something happens, and like we got the opening titles, I think, Emmy nomination. But the thing that I remember most about that last episode was just the heartbreak of not knowing whether you're going to get to do it again, if I was even going to continue to be on the show, because the Chris's would, jump a couple years every season, I think. But yeah, that's the thing I remember from 210 is just crying and telling everybody how much I love them and how much I enjoyed this experience, and like was so thankful. The plane was hot. I remember Boz getting on, and yeah, the whole Tom situation, whether he was going to show up or not, like it was cute. It was a fun little. I was always down to play. I don't give a care if it's, the weirdest scene, the most fun scene. We're crawling through mud. We're in a hot, sweaty plane. Like, do it. It's
Yeah.
fun. You know?
Well, the good news, even for that bittersweet moment, is that you did get another season. You got, brought back to the cast for it. So we get season 3. We do time jump a little, not much, but a little bit. We have a new city, a new office, much bigger sort of warehouse office.
Yeah.
But the roller coaster ride continues for Mutiny. So what jumps out to you as some of the differences between season 2 and season 3 in terms of your experience, let's say, on set?
Well, it's that same kind of feeling of going from like a home cooked meal to a fancy corporation a little bit, like you go to a nice fine dining restaurant, not that the new Mutiny was anything special or even, you know, uh, in my mind, I would have said, I wish we never left the house. You know what I mean? Like that's the basement, the computer, like where you started that special magic. That's where it always was. When we moved to season 3 and had the big new warehouse and the new energy of new people and Ryan and like I love all these humans, but just that energy in the show was just so different and so
Yeah.
combative. And we had the two Joes, Joe Jenical and Joe
Essengil?
Massengill, yeah. And then Ryan, and we had Skylar Aston. Like we had so many great like little, people flop in and play. Um, but yeah, that move to season 3 was definitely a shift of like fun, homey feel to corporate growing up, turning into a man kind of feel that I'm talking about of like, oh, he grew up. You know what I mean? Like we were still cracking jokes and I'm still passing gas on. I just that popped up in my memories the other day. Can you hear this? I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm on camera doing that for the rest of my life, but whatever.
It's all for the art.
Yeah.
All for the art.
This is what I went to acting school for. Yeah.
It's like, what was his motivation during that? Yeah.
Lunch.
Yeah. I think about, when you first jump in for season 3, obviously the Mutiny team is now bigger, but 304 rules of honorable play, the team gets even a little bit bigger than that because Swap Meet merges with Mutiny. And before we get laser tag, we get half, 3/4 of an episode where they hate each other. Like it's tense. Up until that point, it seemed like every new person who was added to the Mutiny team, there was still that like familial or sort of like frat vibe about it. But when Swap Meet comes in, they're really at odds with each other. So talk to me about those guys coming in, or all of those actors coming in, and what it was like to play those scenes, even though you just got that little bit of time where it was tense on set, or in the scenes. What was that like for you?
Well, on set, we were all chill. Like season 3, everybody was so happy to be back and so thrilled to be working. So I didn't think we had much tension or anything like that. I think like it had died down because we all had, I think we had guarantees in season 3, or I had a guarantee maybe that I was like, all right, I'm going to be in 4 episodes. I know that for sure I can enjoy and, whatever. But when Mutiny gets into it and we're like trying to start the new company or merge, actor wise, I remember Jonah Zhao, Josh Brady Smith, and the Joes, and there was one more, right? Didn't we have another third person join us? I forget. It was Wonder or Robot.
I mean, it looked like, it's hard to tell, it looked like actually more people than that.
Oh yeah,
But there were, I don't know, a robot for sure.
yeah.
There
That's
was
Brady. That's
the woman who was in there. And
yeah,
I'm sorry, I don't, Jonah. Okay.
yeah. So Josh Brady was Robot. He is the guy who referred me to my agent to get this job. So
Oh
when
wow.
season 3 came out with casting and I saw he got the audition, I was like, hey, this is my buddy, like I sent a letter to the producers and just said, hey, the whole reason I'm on this show is because of this human. He's great. And then they hired my best friend to be on the show. And we still meet every month or every week. We still talk and write together. But yeah, it's crazy. That's one of those other synchronistic life things where it's just like the person who referred me to his agent to get this job, I ended up, you know,
Just
having.
pay it forward all the way.
I mean, he got to do 3 episodes, and then the same casting directors cast him in Lodge 49, and I think he did like 8 episodes of that. So it's just like, you know, the relationships on this show are outlasting everything. It's such a good thing to have like this family in my back pocket of like humans that are awesome out here. So
Yeah. There's a scene that I want to just reflect on for a moment that I think is heading towards what you and I both think is happening for Bodie of having this growth. But so in 305, which is Yerba Buena, Cam has been MIA for a whole week. Meanwhile, the team has been trying to deal with the fact that there's been a lot of external pressure to start taking actual forms of payment on Mutiny. Instead of having things just be traded, they need to actually take payment. Cam was hoping they'd hold off until she got back so she could create a custom solution. But meanwhile, Doug and Craig already have code that they can use for this if they just sort of clean it up a little bit. Cam comes back to the office after being missing, and she walks in on a meeting that I thought was a very interesting combination of people. And it is Donna, Boz, and Gordon, Doug and Craig, Carl and Bodie. And that looks to me like some sort of a senior team meeting. It doesn't have Lever Yo-Yo. I think it's a really interesting group. So I'm curious, what do you think Bodie's level of authority is at Mutiny at this point?
That's a tough one. We never really got any like, specifics on what we did or what, like we all always just kind of assumed that we were a team, when we were fighting for lines or feeling like, oh, I want to be on this episode, or oh, I hope I get something like that. That kind of energy was real, and I think it kind of bled into Mutiny, like that competitive, like not competitive, but we all wanted the show to be as amazing as it could be, and we all wanted to be on it as much as possible. So when that happened, and I was like, I remember thinking, oh, this is kind of cool. It's me and Carl. Like season 2 and season 1 was Lev and Yo-Yo, and like that shift was definitely there. I don't know if something was going on background wise, or like, I don't know. I definitely felt like a leader a little bit, but also like the screw up leader, the one that's just like, I'm one of the people.
Yeah.
What I mean? Like I think that there was that merriment of like, okay, yes, he's definitely in those meetings, but he's also the first one to fart on the pot. Like it was kind of all over the place.
Transitions take time. Becoming a man doesn't happen in a day.
But do you always change? Like is the person still in there that's gonna fart on you, even if he's your boss? So I don't know.
Well, that perfectly blends into the very next time my next question, which is 307, the threshold, because those same two people, Carl and Bodie, how many times did you have cake smashed in your face at Cam's wedding?
That was one. And I don't even think it was in the script. Like, I don't think, maybe it was. I remember like, I was like, can I drink straight from the bottle? And they're like, yeah. And then I think I even said it to Nick. I was like, throw it in my face, or like, is it cool? Hey, yeah, like I'll have to look back at the script and be like, oh, was that in it or not? But it was just like that celebratory after kind of like, flashback to Mutiny House kind of in the new arena. Because none of that stuff went down there as much. We went to laser tag. That place was an office. The other place was like our fun home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and hey guys, these are your leaders. One smashing cake in the face of the other one. So awesome. I somehow missed that on all previous watches until this rewatch, and I deep dived so much. I was like, oh my God, he has a whole cake smash in it.
Yeah, the first time I think that's ever happened. Yeah, it's a fun. Yeah, it was super fun. Nick Pupo's awesome and great in that too. He was Carl and Wonder Boy, John Cho, like just those friendships and that
Yeah.
that community of Mutiny,
Yeah. One more episode I want to look at, totally different energy. 308, You Are Not Safe. It's heavy. That whole episode, heavy from almost every standpoint. First of all, Ryan, who basically sacrificed himself for Joe. He actually commits suicide and leaves behind a manifesto that you all read. Um, and in addition to that, if that were not enough for this episode, Mutiny goes public and has a terrible opening. It basically some people were already spending the money they thought they were going to make from that. It just dashes the hopes of everybody on the team. What do you remember about working on this episode?
What do I remember about that episode? I remember our opening was awful, and I remember like reading the script and going like, "We're gonna hit, right? It's gonna work out, right?" Like, no, it didn't. The Ryan stuff was always just kind of like, I don't know. Ryan was an interesting character for me, and to see him go out like that was obviously rough. Manish, however, was another great friend from LA that I think I'd already met and maybe worked with. So Manish was like so cool. Um, but yeah, I mean, as a story plot, I mean, I know that you got to get that emotional, big climactic moment, and that was huge. And obviously Joe McMillan had his powers and manipulations over that person and made him feel that way, and how terrible that that went down the way that it went down. Um, but I'd be lying if we weren't on set like, oh, you're gonna go pull a Ryan. You know what I mean? Like, it turned into a bit on set, and like it turned into like, you know, I don't know. We definitely had like fun. Like, that's the thing. We were shooting a drama, but that was one of the most fun shows I've ever been on.
Yeah. Oh my
Like,
gosh.
it meant a lot to like hear that and like experience that Bodie wise, like, you know, because that was the other thing. I think all of us coders thought we wanted to be Ryan. You know what I mean? Like, there was part of me that was like, "Oh, I wish I could have been Ryan and been the one that Joe took along." Could you imagine Bodie and Joe McMillan? But
I can't.
I,
That would be
I
really
think
interesting.
I think the only one that made like for sure sense was Lev, but Lev was going
Yeah.
through his own stuff too with like everything he had the episodes before. Um, I don't know. I think all of us had like that little bit of like, oh, I wish it was us for Ryan kind of thing. But then when he passed away or committed suicide, like, oof. Um, but
It's interesting though, because I don't even know if you would have said from at the first episode when we first meet Ryan, if you would have said, does he work with Joe? I don't know if the answer would have been yes. It does. It works really well, I think, the pairing of those characters. But I don't know. Maybe there could have been other pairings that could have been interesting. But I mean, the stuff we get with Ryan and Joe is fascinating.
yeah, and great. They're both fantastic actors.
Yeah. So okay, 410, we get a summary of where some of the characters have landed. What we hear about Bodie is that he's gone on to have 4 kids. So in your mind, fill that out for me. What did the future hold for Bodie?
Um, if it goes down the way that they say, like, I have 4 kids, family, that whole thing. I think I hit. I think something that I worked on, or like some favor, some human in my life, whether it was Carl, I think he got into porn. Isn't that what they said? Like, he started making porn. Like, maybe I'm his coder for that. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I'm like one of the silent partners or something like that. Like, I definitely think like if I'm able to raise 4 kids, um, I wanted to be with like some married situation, the whole American dream experience, but at the same time, like, yeah, I think that he's probably happy and probably still loving and still giving his life the all that he gives it. Even if it's not the all that other people give it, it's his all. You know what I mean? Like, I think that that is something like Bodie was special to me. Like, my aunt named her cat Bodie, and I was just like, like that's always gonna live with me. Like, Bodie is one of my favorite
Oh,
characters for sure. But yeah, I just think that he grew a lot. I think that he fell in love. In my dreams, it would have been with Kate, and they would have lived a happy little life with 4 kids.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Just two more questions, just sort of like, I don't know, see if there's anything else that we've missed. Are there any other favorite moments that you had on set, behind the scenes, whatever, that really come to mind for you that you want to make sure you've shared?
Yeah. Again, it was just all the things we did outside together, you know. Randy Havens, I don't even know if we shot together, but we were in the same episodes because he was with Gordon. Oh my God, Scoot McNairy. I haven't even said anything about Scoot. Scoot's one of the best humans. Like he'll text, he'll like always just genuine, nice guy. Um, but Randy's one of my best buddies from the show now. Eric, like I wish I could just like give you an experience from every single person because like it exists. Even to backgrounds, like we would go to Atlanta Hawks games together. We would go to Piedmont Park festivals together. You know what I mean? Like we would be on an episode for 2 days and have 8 days. So 6 days we'd be hanging out and 2 days we would be working, like so we would find ways to spend that money. Like Atlanta was a booming economy. But yeah, I just wish that uh I'm happy. Like it is one of the best experiences takeaway. Like there's part of me that wishes like we would have gone 10 seasons and seen everything. I don't know what they would have done for 10 seasons, but there's just like it was perfect. It is what it is, and like it holds such a special place in my heart. Like I wish I could dig out all the crap I have in my closet from this show. I have so many shirts that Kimberly gave me, or just little like you remember those bus size posters that they put out on like the New York subways that were like 5 foot by 7 foot?
Yes.
I'm not kidding you. I have one wrapped up in my bedroom right now, signed by the entire cast,
Wow.
the crew, everything. And like if I make it to a day that I display my stuff one day, that is going to be the center because it's just like the amount of love and like I I I thank the Chris's endlessly. I thank Melissa endlessly. I thank Mark and the Finn Cannons. Like it was honestly one of the best jobs of my life, and I am so thrilled that I'm talking to you about something that I love so much. Um, Mark O'Brien, like just Alexa Palladino. We talked about her for a little bit before. Like I could go on and on and on and on and on, all the way to the background, like Sam Lazarus. Like there's so many people that just Iron. I just want to say everybody's name to be like, I love these humans.
Well, I
But
was going to ask that because I think, so first of all, your name is coming up on a lot of interviews. A lot of people really loved working with you. And so I'm so glad that I'm getting a chance to talk with you. But I did want to say, you've gotten a chance to drop a lot of names here, but is there anybody else that we missed? Anybody on the crew? There's a lot of people on the cast that you've named, but anybody on the crew you want to make sure you've shouted out here? It's like an impossible thing that I ask people to do, to say like, who are the people that that we should know?
yeah,
But who comes to mind for you crew wise?
I mean, hair and makeup was always the best. We have Maurice and Evelyn, and I'm trying to think of everybody that we had. Like even the heads of the departments. I can't remember everybody's name right now, but like literally, it was hugs every time you walked in the door, and it was like I'm so happy to be at this job today. Even the days when it was 100 degrees or snowing in Atlanta, like it was the best. It was the absolute best. I was working on two other jobs at the time when I was doing Halt. I had Walking Dead at the same time, and I had The Leisure Seeker with Helen Mirren. And like I was so excited about Halt. You know what I mean? Like I had like Walking Dead. People love that show. It is one of the biggest cult phenomenons of this. Like I'd trade working on Walking Dead for Halt any day of the week. And I don't mean that as a slight to that show. I'm just talking about like what we created and what my experience was on that show. It was just like Trying to think of more names. I wish I could say every Evans. He was one of our DPs. Glenn, camera, Steven. We lost Steven. Steven was like one of the most amazing humans, and just I think he was like a nice Christian guy who just like felt like that energy of love and acceptance and godliness. I don't
Any
know.
directors that you really loved working with?
Larissa Kondracki, Daisy, Karin, um, all of them. Kimberly Pierce. Kimberly
Mm.
Kimberly Pierce. Like that's someone that I've ran into LA a couple times and have messaged her on Facebook and we've gone back and forth like Oscar winning kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy to just get thrown in. The Chris's, the writers that we had. I know we had so many from uh Mad Men, and I would just look at their resumes and just be in awe that I got to work with these people. And same thing with like Breaking Bad. Like we had a side story again. We had our season 2 premiere, but we weren't like a big show, so we didn't have like a big roll out the red carpet premiere. We had like a fancy, let's invite the producers and directors and their friends, and we're gonna go have a nice little viewing at UTA. So we went to UTA for one of them, and I got to see the show. Oh, I think that might have been season 3, but one of them was at UTA. We got to go. Mark O'Brien was there. Some other people were there. It was very cute. And then the other one was at Soho House, and the same kind of thing. You get to like see these people that you haven't like seen in months because you worked on the show, and then post comes out, and then we have these little premieres, and you just connect all over again, and you're like, oh my God, this like this is seeing you in real life. You know what I mean? Like back in LA or back in, I don't know. I forget where I was gonna go with that, but like the premieres and stuff that we had of just like, oh, the Breaking Bad. So it was at UTA. Instagram was kind of a new thing at the time, or Vine was kind of a new thing at the time, and I was oh, that's the other thing. If you ask any of this cast, I was annoying as could be with my phone and taking pictures and videos. I could show you so much stuff of us, like all the stupid videos we made, like social media wise, like trying to promote the show. Like I was like, I'll do anything if you want it. And you know, my 2,000 followers or whatever I had at the time, like it wasn't going anywhere. But I was like, I'm gonna post it every week. Uh, as we're leaving the premiere, I look over and it's Vince Gilligan. And I was just like, oh my God. Because Breaking Bad is like one of the best shows on the planet, I think, you know, script wise. And I walk up to my friend and I was like, hey, that's Vince Gilligan right there. Should I go ask him what he thinks of our show? And he was like, yeah, go for it. So I went up and I was like, hey, I'm Bodie. I was one of the actors in the show just now. Or I'm Josh. I play Bodie. I was just one of the show now. He's like, oh yeah, you were great, great. And I was like, I'm kind of like doing social media stuff for the show. Would you mind doing something? He goes, no, sure, of course not. It might have been Melissa that I asked if I should do this. And I go up and I go, hey, everybody, I just got out of the season 2 premiere of Halt and Catch Fire. I'm going to go up to a random stranger and ask what he thinks. Hey, sir, what do you think? And he goes, it's great. And that just made my like night. You know what I mean? Like one of the creators of Breaking Bad was, you know, I mean, the creator of Breaking Bad. Like he was so cool. The other one that I had, we went to Soho House, then we went to Chateau Marmont for some food or something, and then we ended up at Craig's, and we're all like eating these fancy pasta things. And Stevie Wonder comes in, and it's his birthday, and I got to sing "Happy Birthday" to Stevie Wonder with like a whole restaurant of people, and that was the other *Halt and Catch Fire* premiere. So I'm just like, ugh, life is crazy.
I mean, try to replicate those experiences. Just try.
I know.
For it to be his birthday, no less.
I know.
Wild.
And the song that I put with everybody's birthday post that I do on my Instagram, Stevie Wonder's Happy Birthday. You know?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. What a journey. I mean, so for those of us who, I know it's been a very strange time in your industry. Is there anything that you worked on anywhere near recently that you want to make sure that we've seen or that you want to shout out?
Yeah, I just had kind of my second or third Halt and Catch Fire kind of experience of life. Um, the show that I just did last year, the year before, whatever it was, now that editing and post and everything. Lessons in Chemistry. If you haven't seen Lessons in Chemistry, I highly recommend it. I play a scientist chemist on that. I did 4 episodes with Brie Larson, and that family feel was also very real on that set. Brie Larson's amazing. Lewis Pullman is one of the coolest dudes on the planet. A lot of great directors, a lot of great writers, actors. Lee Eisenberg is our showrunner. Sarah Dina Smith, fantastic director, and we're up for 10 Emmys. So it's just
Oh my
we just
goodness.
made it. So I feel very proud and happy of that show. I'm on a Progressive commercial right now with Dr. Rick, if you've seen any of those. So check out the new Progressive spots. I love those. Was so lucky to be a part of that. And I just did Monsters, Ryan Murphy's new show coming out this fall with the Eric and Lyle Menendez brothers. So I got to do an episode of that. So
Wow.
that's
The
what's
way
happening.
your career has been building, it's just amazing.
I,
And
I just want to act. I don't care if I got 2 lines. I don't care if I got the whole script. I love what I do. I love working. I love making these relationships, and I love talking about it. So thank you so much for
thank you
giving.
so much for doing this. I what so many nuanced things that you shared with us, so many props. I love
Yeah,
it. I
those are
love the
going to
show
be
and
up
tell.
on eBay anytime now. Here, let's turn it off one more time. Guys, make sure to head over to my link and Bodie. We'll get you a pair. We'll get you a pair sent to your house.
Limited run, just the one. Oh my goodness. Thank you again so much for doing this. And let's just hang out for a second after we close. But to everybody who's watching this, I hope you had as much of a blast as I just did in this conversation. And please go out there and watch Halt and Catch Fire, everyone. Bye.